So when you are up in, Bristol Bay, wherever you were, and you're scratching out your business plan in a tablet there, what were the guiding principles that, you've sent me some of your fish, so I know what it is, but everything in that you send all this, the story of your company and the story of you, and you got a really cool YouTube video out there on your my crew watched your video, they're like, yeah, that was pretty good, man.
And do more of those.
Yeah, but it seems like there's a few principles you're trying to adhere to. Highest quality, no compromise in quality, sustainability, and connecting the consumer to the fisherman.
Yeah.
And using your relationships and knowledge to say, you know what, we're going to be part of this harvest of a wild resource in a sustainable way that conserves the resource and get it to people who appreciate. Am I oversimplifying?
No, I mean that's truly exactly it. It really started out to where the niche was, at first it was wild caught. Like there was going to be nothing but wild caught, and I just wanted to work with what I was doing, with those fishermen, and just creating something to where people begin to truly see, what goes into all this, and our what kind of our mission statement is we're here to change the way people think about seafood, and what that means is to begin to fully understand through all the content we create out there, what it means of wild caught, wild Alaskan, what goes into these fisheries, where this stuff is happening, the seasonality of it, the different seasons of the year, when you want to be able to harvest this fish, when we look to source it, the guys we work with, how it's caught, the management behind it, why these guys are, been fishing up, their families have been fishing up in Alaska for generations. Yeah. It's not just 10, 20, 30 years and you're running out of seafood. I mean, this stuff is just occurring year after year, and all the stuff that goes on with the state, for that management to ensure that the sustainability is there, and these fisheries happen year after year.
Yeah, well, I can attest to the quality, and I have a little bit of an inside track on understanding the fishing industry there, that not just because I spent that summer on my grandpa's longliner, but right now I have two uncles who live in Haines, who have gill netters.
Yeah.
And so I know what their daily lives are. They work their butts off.
Yeah.
And they're at the whims of the market. They don't know what they're going to get per pound for sockeyes. They're trying their best to get an advance commitment on what the price would be.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy job.
No,
Jimmer,
it's not.
my one uncle, he's out there doing it all by himself.
Yeah.
And he's picking these fish out of the net, and he's got to be exhausted. He's a year older than I am. And I think about if I had to go do that all day long. But like a lot of the people you deal with, he grew up with it. It's in his blood.
Yep.
He fished when he was a young guy, and then he went into construction and just always missed the fishing, and now he's back in it.
Yep.
I think for a lot of people it's just, you can't get it out of your blood. That's what I've observed.
And it's like hunting. There's something about it. I mean, you get hooked to it, and I mean up there, those guys. I mean, a lot of the families up there, it's deep.
Yeah.
They've been up there for generations fishing, and they're going to be up there for a long time.
So when you're doing this, so the reason I'd say I have a bit of an inside track is I talked to Jim and Dave, we call them Jimmer and Boog, my two uncles. And you learn what Alaska has done to conserve these wild fisheries.
Yeah.
Since when I was a teenager up there, it was a bit of a free-for-all. It was
the Derby days.
Yeah. The opener is this.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what the weather was, how much risk it required. We were out there fishing.
Yeah.
Well, and it was the old tragedy of the commons of, if no one owns the resource, or everyone feels like, well, I got to go get mine because someone's going to get theirs.
Yeah.
And those fisheries were on a downhill decline for a while. And now, from what I understand, the intervention of the fishermen themselves saying, "Hey, we got to do something about this."
Yeah.
It's a sustainable model now
Yeah.
compared to where it was headed.
Oh, I mean, all the way around, I mean, there's obviously been some big ones that have happened in the past, moving to the quota systems, and that's, started with obviously the halibut and all that stuff in Southeast and all the ground fisheries throughout the state. And then more recently, the crab fisheries.
Yeah.
And I think the crabs definitely highlighted a lot more, to the mass media amount of people, but because of those different TV shows. But yeah, I mean, it changed a lot. I mean, it was crazy days to where you have a set amount of time to catch everything that you can catch, and that's what you get paid for.
Yeah.
And then it's done. And if you look at a lot of statistics in the past, there was obviously a lot more things with boats going down and a lot more accidents.
Yeah.
Back in those days. But
yeah, well, my grandfather rented out his boat and his permit to a group of fishermen who came up from the Gulf of Mexico fishery, and they came up, and I think that was in '82 or '83, and they went out and they didn't make it.
yeah,
I mean, this was a 73-foot boat, and it went down out off Cape Fairweather.
wow.
And none of them made it, and he never bought another boat after that. But it was crazy back in those days.
Yeah.
And it was a free-for-all.
There's so many stories like that. It's it is wild.
And then also the resource, how long can the resource sustain that
Yeah.
kind of work? So what I'm trying to do is paint a picture for the listener of what we've always seen on maybe the 6 o'clock news of, all right, here's some big international vessel invading our waters, grabbing everything that they can, processing it right there, and making it into the fish sticks that you buy, frozen
Yeah.
eight years later or whatever. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but the type of fishery that you're dealing with is not that big industrial, international kind of thing. You're working with the mom and pop kind of folks, like you said, the people who've been in it for generations.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And as we kind of talked, earlier before this too, that what you're referring to, about those big ships, foreign ships coming in and setting nets of 2-3+ miles long and just annihilating, catching everything that swam in that direction. That was an insane thing. That went on for a long, long time. And, I'm not a totally professional in all this, don't know all the ins and outs, but that's where that Magnuson Act came in.
Yeah.
And that's what took care of that. And that was a big deal for the state. And obviously when Alaska did become a state, that's where the sustainability is in the Constitution.
Really?
And it's just, it's if you really start digging into it, natural resources in the state of Alaska is an incredible thing. And it's what a lot of people up there take serious, and people in the fishing industry. It's just fascinating because really all that is up to this management and what the state does. And you always hear people say, different things, but at the end of the day, Alaska's, I believe it's in the top 2 or top 3 managed fisheries in the world.
Really? It's that tightly controlled now.
And it's an incredible thing, how the state has evolved and everything they have done to manage these fisheries. And that means some years, you're not getting as big of a quota as the year before.
Yeah.
That's where different, when it comes to salmon, that's where openings are controlled because salmon is so seasonal.
Right.
So it obviously is open, but there's things called escapement. So, these different river systems need to meet a certain amount of fish going up this river.
Right.
So that obviously years down the road, you still get that return.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of the stuff is managed, and it's looked at in season. So like there's guys in these towers counting fish as fish are going through up these rivers, and it's amazing. What they do and the manpower that goes into that to just constantly throughout the season monitor these fisheries, and closures will happen. Like rivers will be shut down, areas will be shut down mid-season. If not enough fish are going up, or if enough fish have gone up. They're wide open.
Yeah.
And it's really cool and really crazy to see, throughout the state over just the last few years, there's different areas. I'm so tuned into salmon. That's where a lot of my background was.
Yep.
But, throughout the state where there's areas like Bristol Bay, which has just been on fire the last 4 or 5 years. And I say fire in a good way,
Yeah.
to where, you know, just salmon, so much salmon returning.
Wow. Cool.
And, you know, there is definitely a threshold where it gets to that point to where too much salmon can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Just for populations and reproducing and all that stuff. But then there's places like Southeast, you know, where pink salmon fisheries, you know, have not been to the hype where, you know, a lot of people projected them to be. So it's, yeah, it's crazy to see throughout the state and the different species, you know, how that stuff is managed and how the fisheries are doing right now.
Yeah, and you know, I get the benefit of getting to talk to two guys who, you know, in fact, Jimmers, people watching our YouTube channel, saw me take him to New Mexico in 2018 on an elk hunt, and we had a lot of downtime to talk about fishing and conservation and sustainability. And if there's one thing that's pretty common among all the fishermen I know, is they're very concerned about sustainability, because you have this weird or different situation in the commercial fish world than what we think of in the hunting space, right? In the hunting space, we have the North American model of wildlife conservation says there shall be no commercial sale of wild animals.
Yeah.
And they're mostly talking, you know, we saw it happen to the buffalo. We saw it happen to many species. And so the closing of those commercial markets helped conservation efforts that recovered our elk, deer, and turkeys, and the list goes on and on. In the commercial fishing world, you still have a wild, mostly naturally reproducing resource that is dependent upon the highest quality of habitat. But yet, there is a surplus that can be taken every year. And that's a pretty, I can put myself in the shoes of, oh, I just want to go catch them all and be gone and, you know, make my fortunes. But every one of them I talk to are like, no, we have these rules for a reason.
Yeah.
And there might be days where I'm kind of bummed that, hey, they told us, hey, we're going to have an early closure because not enough fish, like you were saying, are getting through. And yeah, that's a bummer, but you know, I know that if my son or my daughter or whoever's going to take over this boat and this permit, we got to have these systems.